I'll be there again with the film's director, steal this story, please. Go to democracynow.org for details. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks for joining us.
When you're ready to let go of that car you no longer need, KFAI is ready for you. Our vehicle donation program is available 7 days a week to help you arrange for your free pickup. It's easy, it's free, and it matters. Donate at kfai.careasy.org or call 855-277-2346.
Sponsoring KFAI is the Historic Auditorium. This historic venue will be showcasing guitarist Billy McLaughlin on May 22nd and Polisa on May 23rd. Did you know that over time, the venue underwent numerous transformations, including use as a library, city offices, and a sewing factory before becoming the music venue we know today in 1990? You can experience live music from a historic venue in St. Croix, Wisconsin. Tickets and more information can be found at thehistoricauditorium.com.
The viewpoints expressed in this program are the opinions of the people expressing them and are not necessarily those of Fresh Air Incorporated, its staff, or its board of directors.
Hi, this is Al McFarland, host of The Conversation with Al McFarland. You're listening to 98.3 FM, KFAI, Minneapolis.
All right, can see it, right? Marcus, Al, can you say something?
Test 1, 2, 3. Test 1 through 3. How much did we begin with?
Can you roll? All right.
You want me to say something?
Do you want to do
Yes.
again?
We're broadcasting live from George Floyd Square. We're fortunate to have the friendship and partnership of the Worldwide Outreach Center for Christ, Worldwide Outreach for Christ, here at 3808 Chicago Avenue South. Our gratitude to Pastor Curtis Farrar and his team. And we invite you to drop in. We're live today and all week this week. We'll be doing shows that commemorate where we are. This is sacred ground, sacred space, 38th in Chicago, George Floyd Square. And much is changing right now as we speak. In the days ahead, legislative systems are moving forward to look at how this community is going to recover, revive itself from the trauma. And over the course of this week, we'll be talking to people in community who both were witness and victims, but also victors, people that demonstrate and reveal the resiliency of spirit and of heart in our community, of our culture, and who are committed to building a future in which I think the best of us emerges. And we do that in the name of honoring the senseless murder and death at this corner, 38th in Chicago, the death of George Floyd, who was killed here 6 years ago. This is a week of celebration. We're calling it George Floyd Week. And like we did last year and year before last, we're calling our programs this week Amplified Voices. We want to lift up the voices of the community, lift up your voice. If you're listening anywhere on KFAI, we thank you for being a listener. We invite you to drop in, just pull in here to 38th in Chicago at the Worldwide Outreach for Christ Church here at 3808 Chicago Avenue South, and be part of our audience and part of the conversation as well. Also, you may be checking us out online, either with YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn. You can drop a note in the chat. We'd love to have your comments as you follow the conversation and participate with it. We're going to start today's program with a special guest, a dear friend, and one of the elders in community, a leader in community. Marquita Stevens is the president and CEO of the Urban League of Twin Cities. And, she runs an organization that has a history, a legacy of public service, building equity, promoting education, promoting employment, promoting systemic change for the community. She's now the president and CEO of the Urban League of Twin Cities, but she's got more than 20 years of experience in public service. Her background is in education, equity, and community leadership. She led and co-developed equity-centered initiatives and frameworks with a strong focus on systems change and community empowerment. Marquita, welcome once again to the conversation with Al McFarland. So glad to see you, and thank you for being our first guest here today at George Floyd Square.
Always a pleasure. Thank you very much for the invitation. I look forward to speaking with the audience.
Well, I think the first thing is to have us talk about, Marquita, how we feel about where we are right now. And we're looking out the window here from the sanctuary, and we can see the corner. We see the place where George Floyd was killed. And as you drive through here or sit here, what thoughts are in your mind and your heart as you reflect on
it is, though 6 years later, still a fresh memory because it was a impactful incident that occurred here, far-reaching, worldwide, and not easily forgotten. The the hurt of the murder of George Floyd lingers. Those who were throughout the
When you first heard of the incident, do you recall your first thoughts?
my first thought was aghast, certainly, that this could be caught on tape like it was, but I was really grateful that the young lady that filmed it was calm, and that she could stand in her space and actually record it for the length of time it occurred. Had it not been for her, we would not have had the opportunity to witness and to share that witness throughout the world in the same way that we did. I salute her, particularly being a young woman, that she was able to do that, and stand in what has become a worldwide memory in the people of this generation.
And when you saw the video the first time, what was your gut reaction? It was kind of unbelievable, because I remember watching it and, just saying this can't be happening. It's not going to end the way it's going to end, but it did. What were your thoughts?
I mean, she brought you into the moment when you're watching it, so you might have a first reaction was get off of him, as though you were there in the crowd. And I wondered if I might have been one of those people who tried to approach it to try to intervene with that, because it just seemed to be that unfair. You couldn't watch it without feeling a sense of unfairness, a sense of wrong, a sense of having gone too far.
So what's the context in terms of the relationship between the Minneapolis Police Department and George Floyd in this incident? Here's what I understand: that George Floyd and Derek Chauvin knew each other, that they both had worked as he an off-duty cop and Chauvin as an off-duty cop at a local venue, where George also worked as a bodyguard, or not a bodyguard, but a bouncer, doorman. And so they had known each other already. And how can two people that had some acquaintance have this life-ending experience? What is the context with law enforcement in general that allowed this massive display of personal fatal power being visited on one human being that the record shows was apparently impaired at the time? So I'm trying to see, how do you put that in the description of how the community in general was feeling about policing and the history of it here in Twin Cities and maybe in the country? Any thoughts of that at all?
Well, it pointed to a lack of checks and balance, internal checks and balances. This was not Chauvin's first rodeo. And apparently there was no process for, and I'm going to call it checking his behavior, as in terms of the process of the police department. And that's what we all saw and what later came out in journalistic reporting, that it just didn't exist. This was not his first time doing improper policing, and it called into question the ability internally of the police department, the police mechanism, to be able to check its own.
I'm Al McFarland. This is The Conversation with Al McFarland. We're broadcasting live from George Floyd Square in South Minneapolis, 38th in Chicago. We're actually at the Worldwide Outreach for Christ Church here at 3808 Chicago Avenue South. You are invited to join us. If you're in the neighborhood, just drop in. We'll be broadcasting here live all week long. We're calling this George Floyd Week. It leads up to the actual observation of the day of the deed. That'll be Monday, which is an appropriate day, Memorial Day. And it's a day that the whole country, the whole world has to really focus on this traumatic event. And Marquita, what I was getting at was how do we put in context? This is something that we have seen, we as African people, as Black people, have seen again and again and again. Our history in this country, in fact, is a history of watching ourselves be lynched, beaten, destroyed, families, communities, relationships, children, parents, wives, husbands. We've been through this, and it's not a figment of our imagination. It's the history, and it's at the hands of a system that allowed human beings to be inhuman towards us. And so when we saw this, in my mind, two things were happening. One, here they go again. And the second thing was, oh no. And I am glad that the whole world is witnessing this horrific injustice that was unfolding, that law enforcement and systems historically allowed, apologized for, or told us that what we see, we didn't see. It wasn't really happening. And so when you think about the civil rights movement, the human rights movement, how does this play into our sense of mobilizing our community? What do you think?
I think that it was an opportunity for every generation to be able to see what perhaps most of the living generations now have only read in books. Particularly if you were born and socialized in northern cities throughout the country, it gave you an opportunity to really witness and to feel exactly how these matters are handled or were handled in the earlier African American history of the United States. That means something. That's a necessary thing to have happen, because it helps to galvanize people in the community around those things that impact us most. And so it took being a story, something that we just kind of celebrate periodically, into a realistic everyday life, yes, this still happens moment. And that was important for us to understand, particularly those of us who are engaged in civil rights activity. As we talk to people in community, as we talk to the varying generations about the reality of oppression, this gave it a modern context, so that you're not talking about what happened in yesteryear. You're talking about what happened just the other day.
I'm Al McFarland. This is The Conversation with Al McFarland. We're broadcasting live from George Floyd Square. We're actually hosting the program today and all week long, and we invite you to show up and be here and to engage at any level that you are able to. We're at the Worldwide Outreach for Christ Church at 3808 Chicago Avenue South. Drop in. We're here every day this week from 1 to 2 for the live broadcast here on KFAI and on SPNN TV. We're streaming live to Facebook, to YouTube, to LinkedIn, and connect. This is about community. So today's conversation centers on reflection, on accountability, and the emotional impact, where the community stands here 6 years after the murder of George Floyd. And over the course of the week, we're going to explore, we're going to discuss what our communities are still carrying emotionally, economically, politically, and spiritually, especially as the public attention seems to be shifting elsewhere. And is the shift that's occurring a natural shift, or is it intentional? I will ask you to talk about that in a minute. I fear that we are moving headlong in the wrong direction at the leadership of the national leader. The administration is leading the effort to erase us, our movement, our memory, and our gains. Be that as it may, I also can say that I am convinced that we will continue to emerge and to be our best selves as we go forward. Let me bring another guest in today. And, we talk about intergenerational all the time. And my friend and actually my cousin, Kenya McKnight Ahad, represents the next generation. Kenya McKnight is here. She's the founder and CEO of Black Women's Wealth Alliance. And her organization, her work focuses on wealth, education, on technical support, on professional development, and financial empowerment for our community. She's an entrepreneur, she's an investor, she's a motivational speaker. Her strong focus is on generational wealth and economic sustainability for Black women. Kenya, welcome to the conversation. Al McFarland, once again, all the time. We thank you for being here because you always bring fire. How you doing?
I'm doing good.
Well,
Doing good. Thanks for having me.
Let's start with the same question that I asked of Marquita. If you think back for 6 years ago, when you first heard the news, what were you doing? And what were your first feelings, your first thoughts?
I was doing a staff training right on Emerson and Broadway inside the ECMC space where Sammy's is. And one of my team members started crying. And I was like, well, what happened? And she's like, you didn't see the news? I was like, no. And she was like, I'm not able to work. And she explained what happened. And so we all took a step back and just kind of brought ourselves up to speed. And it was just, I don't know, it was a different moment. So none of us finished work. We actually just was there with each other and then later parted ways, but we just needed to take that moment. So that's what I was doing when it happened.
And so when you got it, what did your gut tell you? What were your fears? What were you sad? And how did sadness visit you? What was the impact on your spirit? You said you had to hear that from a coworker, one of your people. How did that sit in your spirit?
Honestly, I think, it didn't hit me at first because when you interface with so much death and, but so I didn't get it initially, like that it was something different. I was just like, oh, the police killed somebody else again.
That's kind of horrific.
It is.
For us to feel that.
But I think there's some kind of numbness that was there. That was just like, oh, this is what be happening.
Yeah.
So I didn't have a real emotional attachment to it, initially. And so it hit actually a few days later. I mean, her crying was like, it was something different. But it didn't hit me until a few days later. And then I started feeling like, where am I? Because like I'm watching the video, like when the video came out, maybe it was like a week or so. I think the video came out. And so when you start watching it, that felt different than just the police killed somebody. It went from the police killing somebody to, in my mind, a public lynching happened, which I hadn't seen, in my lifetime. And like, I mean, there's things that happen, but like I see this, it's recorded. And that's how I felt. It was a public lynching. And so this sort of a, I don't know, I felt eerie. I felt like, where are we? And I felt like, oh, we're in the wrong place. We're in the North. It's not as many Black people up here. So, they outnumber us here in a different way than if we were in the South or even in the lower Midwest where I'm from. And I didn't want to be here, because I felt like, I felt like we were in some times that we hadn't faced before, and that this was a snippet of what our ancestors had to face. And it just felt like that time. It felt like whatever Neck Woods, upper, deeper Minnesota's, they was coming to the inner city, and that we just needed to prepare. And so that's how I felt. That's what was going through my mind. That's what was going through a lot of our minds, actually. And it was sort of this, you didn't have to say a word. You can just look at other Black people, and we understood what was happening without words, So I can't really explain it all. It was just
Did it surprise you? Two big things happened for me. One is three things. One is that Keith Ellison and the police chief, Medaria Arredondo, African-American man, along with the governor, acted quickly to charge the officers. That was kind of surprising. It was big. That's number one. Number two, the city was on fire. In particular, Lake Street, North Minneapolis, St. Paul, people were mad, upset, and it was big. So a lot of damage, maybe in the billions, happened along the commercial corridors. And then the third thing is that this caught the attention of the entire planet. Everybody in the world was looking at Minneapolis. And, when you look at this, looking at a community that prided itself in being fair and being accessible and not being in the South where things weren't as dangerous, but here it is.
Yeah.
The evidence of systemic violence against a Black body, merciless violence against a human being that was Black under the cover of law. I think it revealed something that was horrific and obviously unacceptable, but revealed it in a way that we told the world, we've been telling y'all that's what was going on. Y'all didn't want to hear us.
Yeah.
You thought we made this up when we'd be complaining about brutality by the police department, but it's not. And here is the pinnacle example, caught on tape, 10 minutes. Deal with that. What do you think? That's what I thought.
I mean, we were in the beginning of a pandemic too. So it was like a double whammy of things going on, but absolutely. And I felt like Minnesota, but then I have to think back to Jamar. I got to think back to several others, who've been murdered, Philando Castile, and, several others right here in Minnesota. And so it's like, okay,
and so just think about that. So just between us in our community, when we see somebody killed, either in Black on Black, a gang violence or whatever it is, or even a domestic violence, or killed by the law, how have we normalized that? Do we say, oh, and then going about our business? Because there was a series, we mentioned Philando and Jamar and others. Yeah. And our first reaction is to say, oh, that's kind of the way it is. Or what did they do?
Well, I mean, we care, right? I would say that we understand that, unfortunately, it shouldn't, but these things have been happening since Caucasians been here in this country, because we've been here longer than most of them. So I'm going to say since they got here. And this has just been, the white violence against Black bodies is a thing. It remains a thing. And so I don't think I think for me, I can say we don't necessarily normalize it, but we do anticipate it. And in that anticipation, part of how we navigate and continue moving on is we mourn. Of course we care, like we all show up and, for that, we cry for them. We hurt for them. We are angry. We're unhappy with all of that. I don't understand, I don't think it's a system thing. I think it's just their behavior, right? The system can't allow you to do anything that's not in you, right? And so this barbaric behavior, inhumane, is just part of who those folks are. That ain't got nothing to do with the system. The system is trying to control this animalistic behavior to whatever degree it does for the laws. But I think that we do become numb a little bit, but it doesn't mean we don't care and that we don't have compassion. So we show up to the rallies and things like that. But at the end of the day, everybody's still got to take care of the things you're responsible for. So you have to keep moving on with your life, but it doesn't mean that we're not concerned. You know, as you know, even Jamar Clark, that was my cousin, my auntie shares 3 children with Jamar's dad, and you know, we all from the same, you know, same city. We grew up together, his family, his mom, his, you know, and so that
Tell people about that. I drive by Plymouth Avenue every day, and there is a memorial on Plymouth Avenue across the street from the Elks Club.
The Elks.
Club. But remind us.
Which his
about that.
family, you know, his family, his immediate family, his mother, his sister Tiffany, fiercely advocates and fights, you know, on behalf of justice for him, but also others. You know, they finally got a memorial site on Plymouth Avenue, right where he was murdered, you know, in his memory, which is great to have that monument there. But Jamar was, you know, gunned down by the police. You know, he didn't have a weapon or anything. He was shot, you know, while he was nearly handcuffed, right? And so, you know, a young man, and, you know, the same excuse, no cooperation, etc. We know the bodies of Black men continue to be the sacrifice for this nation, to be honest. I understand that it happens to Black women as well, but I do think that there's a very particular focus and sacrifice that Black men come under through white violence. And Jamar and, you know, Philantro and George Floyd, I mean, it are great examples of that, unfortunately. But yeah, so it happened to Jamar, and the community shut down the police precinct and created an occupation there for weeks, demanding that the mayor of Minneapolis, you know, come to some type of agreement, and quite frankly, the congressional and all the politicians come to some type of agreement that they get a handle on what's happening with the local police department, you know, and do some studying to kind of, you know, because, you know, data is everything. So folks got to do their data, but they demanded that they come to the table, you know, the Department of Justice, et cetera, to really get a plan in place for how they're going to educate, train, but also discipline, right? And recruit and hire, right, officers, better officers in the community. And there was so much more. It's a lot of folks that went into making that happen. I know, you know, Nakima Levy, Nakima Armstrong now, but Levy Pounds at that time, the NAACP, Reverend McAfee. I mean, there were several groups of folks that got together to, you know, help really hold the city, the state, and the federal Department of Justice accountable for police behavior. But then right after that, right, like 4 more Black men were murdered. And then George Floyd led up to that one. So I do agree that, you know, with George, though, I think it just, I don't know, I think it just felt very different because of the impact it had, the trouble that the young lady went through in releasing the video, the young man that was there, the level of trauma that it had on people right there on site who, you know, and it just hit a little different. And again, the knee on the neck was, it just felt like it was a public lynching to me. And if we weren't clear before about where we were in our times, that made it very clear. It made it very clear. And I saw instant unity amongst Black people, but I also understood that we were a little paralyzed and we couldn't move as fast as everybody else. Even when all the money and everything else came, we were still kind of in this space of trying to figure out like what is really next for us. We need spaces to, you know, unpack and heal, but we saw several groups step up and start providing body support, protection, arms, on the south side, on the north side, you know, organizing, lots of men and women who would join that was there to protect the community on the front lines because we had also white supremacists running through the community,
Mhm.
so there was a lot going on.
Starting fires. Yeah.
Starting fires,
Yeah.
starting fires with, arsenal in their trucks. I mean, it was a lot. They burnt up the city.
Mhm.
Yeah, really.
Mhm.
Folks coming in from out of town. There was a lot going on at once.
I'm Al McFarland. This is The Conversation with Al McFarland. We're broadcasting live this week, today, and every day this week, 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock, live here on KFAI. And this is our George Floyd Week programming. And we invite you to check in with us, to join the conversation. We're streaming live to Facebook and to YouTube. We also are broadcasting live on SPNN television in St. Paul. We thank them for their support. They're actually handling the live production here at the Worldwide Outreach for Christ Church. We invite you to join us here to be part of the conversation, or join us online as well. Let me ask you both to pivot a little bit and take a moment to talk about your work as a leader in community. And then we'll close by tying that back to the mission that we have assumed out of what happened here at 38th in Chicago. Marquita, first of all, let's give people again a background on the Urban League of the Twin Cities work, its history, its vision, and respond any way you want to the things that Kenya said or that I have asked before. But however you want to flow with that.
Thank you. First and foremost, the Urban League is a civil rights and advocacy organization, and that's a mantra it shares with 92 affiliates around the country. We, most of us, have workforce programming, I would say, and then after that it varies in terms of services to the community. In our community, we've got workforce programs, we've got family stabilization programs, and we've got programs relative to education, particularly for high school or high schoolers. And we do quite well at that. We've done that for, in this community, 92 years. We've got some really good measurable outcomes and function in a way that I believe the community would be proud. Our mission is that through services, advocacy, and community mobilization, we advance the social, political, and economic success of African Americans in the Twin Cities, and we live up to that each and every day. For this time, for this work, for this moment, I think that we are convening some people in order to have relevant conversations and to determine a course of action to address the times that we're currently in. Certainly remembering that what happened 6 years ago in this very square guides that. Mm. And so the community can rest assured that we will always be at the forefront of conversations, may not be in the limelight, but we're at the forefront in conversations, protecting their interests and advancing their well-being.
I want to come back to you, Marquita, to talk about how we as community can mobilize our communities ourselves so that we have access to the resources we need to develop. And we're in a climate now that's getting to be hostile again towards Black community development, towards entrepreneurship, towards our existence. Again, I say, as I mentioned before, it's coming from the top, from the MAGA right, from the White House on down, and that these people are emboldened. Mm-hmm. And so two things happen again. Number one, that's their agenda, but their agenda doesn't determine our agenda. So even as we acknowledge this aggressiveness towards us, again, the renewed sense of bravado that they are bringing in attempting to reassert themselves, we know that the history shows our incessant demand and movement towards freedom and towards justice. And we know that as we create, as we think, as we collaborate, we resist the negative impact that they are presenting And we also are building something. We're building the real meaning of freedom and democracy. Kenya, let me have you jump in here and talk about your work with Black Women's Wealth Alliance, and to the degree that you want to tie that to the times we're in and tie it to the solutions that you see that you're building community through.
One, I'm trying to get free. You got to be freed up out here. I think so in my work with the Black Women's Wealth Alliance, so I like to just say that I'm an economic leader. I'm an investor. I'm a developer. I love real estate, so I'm focused on that. In my work with the Black Women's Wealth Alliance, it's about building economic agency. So, you know, in my world, a nation rises no higher than its woman. And the conditions of Black women will always dictate the conditions of the Black nation. And it's to our benefit to make sure that she's good, she's stable. Because if she is, then our nation is. So for that reason, I focus my work on Black women who also control nearly 60% of the total Black dollar. So it's also to our, you know, benefit to make sure that she's aware of her power, her influence, and that she has the knowledge and skills, information she needs to be successful in managing, investing, and, you know, using our resources to build Black generational wealth for not only herself, but our families and our community. So, because, you know, despite our marital status, we still influence and control the money. So that my work is centered around that. And we've been doing it since 2014. And we're actually pivoting a little bit now. So to next year, we'll be just focused on doing an annual conference. I'm at a place where I am, you know, shifting my work as I, you know, get deeper into real estate. But also I want to speak more. I want to get out and talk. I think the thought leadership is of the times now, because there's a lot of information that's missing. And we need to be out here sharing to educate and to engage and inspire and motivate and mobilize our community, and especially our younger folks who don't have the, you know, they don't have the benefit of having, you know, leaders around that we've had in our times. And the way that we used to organize, even when I was coming up as a young person, watching Al Flowers, yourself, all these folks, that's not what they have right now. You know, they have a different movement. And so there's gaps. And so I want to be a part of helping to close the gaps on real knowledge and strategies as an organizer, you know, activist, things I've done as a strategist. And so I think that becomes really, really necessary right now, because they're hungry, but the substance of what they have is based on the internet and liberalism, if you will, where, you know, we really need the meats and potatoes, which comes from our ancestors. We know the movement, the civil rights, and all the work that we did even here, you know, over the last 30 years, 40, 50 years to fight for things. Because one thing that's clear to me is that I think in hindsight, looking back, you know, at the time, you know, when that, you know, unfortunately, Mr. Floyd was murdered, it felt like Black people became humanized for a minute. And you got all this spurt of, you know, everybody's just like, oh, you know, and then quickly that went away when they didn't have to be. Right. So the white folks that's showing up today are, if they're showing up because they want to, but they don't have to be, they gone. So I know so many people complaining right now about losing contracts, DEIs, investments, and all these other things, because the requirement to, you know, be considerate of other human beings who are not just looking like you is gone for the most part. And that's what Trump has gutted, which for me translates to civil rights, which is social and economic inclusion. So like in my generation, we complain, you know, some of us, most of us, I'm gonna say, that's a big statement, but I'm gonna just say it. And then they can prove us wrong if I'm wrong. Is we look at the civil rights and we go, oh, that was weak. That was all the things that he just gutted. And I don't think we understood what it was. We didn't really understand the social and economic importance of inclusion. right? We just look at and say, oh, they were marching for voting. Oh, well, it actually means something. They were marching for school. Well, because if you can't get education, if you can't grow and develop, if you can't connect to the world, we're in a corner. We can't thrive.
A question somebody, I quoted one of my guests a few days ago, said, maybe we'll start paying attention when slavery is on the ballot.
It's on the ballot right now.
It's on the ballot already.
And so,
right?
and it's what I'm saying. Like I don't think we understood it until right now. We're all looking like, oh, wait a minute. Civil rights was about social and economic inclusion. See, we think they forgot about business. I just like to say no generation is going to do everything. That was part of what we're supposed to pick up that other part, right? That's why we lead entrepreneurship as a Gen Xer. But it's more than that. And now we've got to be able to focus on the social inclusion in the economic pieces. That is not just money. It's the education. It's the voting. It's the housing. It's everything that they're gutting right now. And I don't know that we understood that until now. And
so how do we do it? What's the action plan? What are the steps to get to mobilizing the activity inside our families, our community?
Louisiana is showing us right now.
Say more.
What just happened in Louisiana, where they just redistricted, the legislative seats, and there's little to no Black representatives left. And so those folks are organizing. Every day they're meeting, they're going up there, they're fighting, they're confronting these folks, but they're fighting and they're organizing amongst themselves, which is what we have to do. Like, we've got to build our own, we've got to rebuild structures right now. We got to get through these next 10 years. This is about a 10, 20-year journey, if you ask me, because after Trump, I just don't know when the Democrats getting back in there right now based on the demonstration that he's putting out. If you ask me, my opinion, which you are, that's why I'm here. I'm going to tell you that a lot of white Democrats and liberals cashed in on white supremacy. Trump won most of the country. That's not an accident, right? And so, I think that a lot of them cashed in on whiteness. Too much equity was going on. And while they're, yes, we're, smiling on the picket lines and all of that, but when it comes to the voting poll, they either didn't go or they voted a different direction. That's just the bottom line. There's no other way you can cut it, because if that isn't true, then how did he win? Right? There's no excuse for that other than the fact that they cashed in on white supremacy to win again and at our expense. And so I take that serious. And so what that means to me is that we've got to, understand that, one, and two, stay committed for those who are, but those who hadn't, we got to commit to building our own infrastructure again. We're in a new era of Jim Crow segregation. Like it or not, we're here. We're here. He's removed all of the laws that prevent us from being here, from being that. So it's legal now. Segregation is legal. And, while we have always been in it, the levels that we've been in has, we've improved, but he just regressed everything. So, no one is at the federal level required to hire any people of color or house or opportunities. He gutted all of that. In fact, I'll wrap up and say this. Right now, most Black people I know, from the highest organizations and businesses to the smallest, are feeling the economic pinch right now. And that isn't an accident. That is design. And we know that he came in and chopped the businesses from the federal level and the employment from the federal level.
300,000 Black women first.
Unemployed.
Yeah.
Unemployed.
Professionals.
600,000.
Yeah.
600,000 as of last year.
Yeah.
And that's not even including the men. And that's not even including the procurement business. Those were employees. And so in the DEI and all the other cuts that he's made to all the programs, we're feeling it everywhere. So if we haven't figured it out by now, one of the most important things we have to do is turn to ourselves and really tap back into that collective, cooperative movement, strategy, and thinking. This isn't the time for me. This is the time for we and us.
And I would echo that last sentiment. The way we get through this, the way we proceed is together. We have to come together, and put aside our individual agendas and come together for the sake of the whole. That's what's going to not only withstand the oppression that is coming at us in the ways that it is, but it's going to allow us to strengthen and move forward in this period and beyond. And that's where your legacy organizations come in, because they have some experience in doing that. It's not easy. I can recall a project that I worked on a few years ago where the Urban League, as a community representative, the State Department of Education as the governmental agency, and the school district rep had to come together to put together a strategic framework in order to advance equity in the schools. It took us a year, and this was 3 Black women. So we're not talking about racial things we had to get up. We're not talking about male, we're not talking about that. We're talking about 3 Black women, and it took us a year because we represented 3 different entities, and we did it. We came together and do it. And because I know that happened, I know this can happen. And so as we convene people, as we figure out what it is that we think and convene people around these issues that are in front of us, we as the Urban League work with the NAACP, who works with, it's a time for everybody to come together and figure out how we're going to advance as well as protect ourselves during this period, individually and collectively. I know that there are some nonprofit agencies. I have some colleagues that we meet around periodically from around the country, and one in Memphis was talking about they submitted a grant it was a re-up grant, and they didn't get it because they used the word marginalized. Mm-hmm. So there's some, not only in terms of what Trump is doing or elected officials is doing, that philosophy is filtering down through decision makers in all places. And so we have to be ever vigilant around how we're going to financially support our organizations who do work on our behalf. So all of this is not only affecting people's employment and outlooks and that kind of thing, but it is affecting our ability to serve. And for those of us who are called to serve, we have to pay attention to that and to mobilize and organize around that so that we can represent and support the people that our missions are designed to address.
Can I just add?
Before you do, in the current issue of Insight News, there's a full-page ad. We're going to be running that ad for the next several weeks. The ad is the 2026 Minnesota legislative session, United Black Legislative Agenda. And I encourage everyone to pick up the paper, to tune into this idea that we have been articulating and continue to present our priorities as a community. And we need to arm ourselves with the language, the narratives, so that we can say that these are the 7 items or the 7 priorities. They include business and economic development. They include public safety. They include education, policy, development in our community, employment, housing, health, and wellness. And somehow we've got to make this the dinner table conversation in every house, where we are moment by moment, day by day, mobilizing, organizing. Yeah. What's at stake right now? I think the demand of the moment is that we really focus in on the November elections, the midterm, because that's our next big defense opportunity. I wanted you all to react, if you would, to the fact that our legislature just closed last night, and it was a weird environment because all of the fraud allegations that emerged out of the Feeding Our Future crisis has bubbled over into every other sector of Black and community engagement. And so people are experiencing a different kind of trauma. Kenya, you mentioned how there was excitement and early money with COVID, and in response to us seeing us as human beings after George Floyd happened, but that is disappearing.
Oh, God.
So talk about what's happened in the past 5 years, and how does today looked like a logical next step of what we saw developing after the excitement wore off, you know. But then finally, where do we go? Go ahead.
I would say that a nice percentage of that money, most of that money, did not go to African American communities. First of all, that came out of George Floyd. We got in on the back end of that because we couldn't move as fast as other people. I think just my theory is we just couldn't move as fast as them on the money strategy. We were still paralyzed from the other part of it. So some things circle back to us later, but certainly not as much that went out, to those other communities. By the way, they moved it away from economic equity and investment. And because remember, George Floyd was allegedly killed because of a false fake $20 bill. And the fact that this store is still here is just insane. They should not even own this building. We should have already taken this building over. It shouldn't even be here serving nobody. But we should have already turned it into something else. But anyway, so
Let me just add,
Yes,
while
ma'am.
you're saying that, every out of town guest that I have, that come through
Mhm.
here, that's the very same thing they ask. That if it had been in Baltimore, had it been in Philadelphia,
take it over.
had it been, it wouldn't have
Yeah,
existed.
yeah.
It would have burned that day.
Yeah. I mean, they got friends from local. I get it with the neighborhood, but
Yeah.
those ties can't be deeper than the ties we have to ourselves. And
Mhm.
so I'm going to push that on my homies in this neighborhood. I would just say quickly, look, it was a scramble and we wasn't part of that scramble. And they moved it away from investment economic because, George came here for opportunity.
Mhm.
He was at Turning Point, right? He
Mhm.
was in the treatment program. He built a life for himself. From Texas, he came here to build a new life. And this was a land of opportunity. But he came here because of Turning Point, right? That was changing his life. And he was killed for $20, allegedly false $20. So money, opportunity, right? And so he represents something very deep about the plight of Black people in this country, the economic equity. And in that being the case, that money quickly moved away from that to start focusing on repairing businesses that was burned down. I mean, that's what the legislator focused on. In Minnesota, that's what the funders focused on. So that thing continued, and then some got to Black folks, but then when Trump came back in, it went away. Now the focus is on ICE. And then the fraud that came down, which is real, and it does have an impact. And I want to say that it isn't primarily in our community at all, but it definitely affects us deeply, because all of our contracts are scrutinized at a level that we're in compliance. There's always going to be somebody who's got some things going on, but overall, we're seeing our contracts, invoices being held up for months, and so the impact is real on our agencies.
We're down to the last couple of minutes here. I'm Al McFarland. This is The Conversation with Al McFarland. We're broadcasting live from George Floyd Square. We'll be here all week, and we invite you to join us here. Come here tomorrow, every day this week, to talk about the impact, the meaning of the commemoration of the life and the murder of George Floyd. Final question, 30 seconds, if you would. If you could leave communities with one truth, one warning, or one call to action 6 years later, what would it be? Marquita, what would it be?
2 words: stand together.
Awesome. Kenya?
Keep building. We have beautiful things that the community has built post George Floyd right here in this neighborhood, but also outside. Let's keep building, keep fighting, keep going, keep moving together.
Listen, what a great beginning. Again, I want to invite you who are listening on KFAI, and thank KFAI and SPNN for the live broadcast. I'm Al McFarland. We'll see you here tomorrow. This is George Floyd Week, live from George Floyd Square. We're at the Worldwide Outreach for Christ Church at 3808 Chicago Avenue South. Our thanks to Pastor Curtis Farrar. We'll see you tomorrow.